Tonight on the Daily Debrief.
So you find your mom laying dead on the floor, and she is gone.
An Iowa farmer who was found not guilty of killing his mother speaks out for the first time since the verdict.
The next thing I know, Agent Ludwig's screaming for me to get out of the pickup.
Plus,
I never really thought that he would ever do anything to hurt his daughter because he loved his daughter.
emotional testimony from a defendant's mother as she describes his behavior leading up to his lethal attempt to keep his daughter to himself.
But he didn't want Michelle to get her, did he?
No.
Didn't want Guy Kisser to get her, did he?
No.
Also, legal controversy continues for an actor accused of faking a hate crime attack, even after charges are dropped. The nation's most fascinating cases are on the Daily Debrief. It's Friday, March 29th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rachel Stockman, in tonight for Aaron Keller. He was found not guilty of murdering his mother. Now he's speaking out. Jason Carter says he was shocked to find his mother dead in her home before he was arrested in front of his son. He told Iowa's NBC WHO 13 about the emotional toll Shirley Carter's death had on their family.
So you find your mom laying dead on the floor, and she is gone. And then on top of that, you're about to lose your wife and kids. Police car after police car started swarming in. And the next thing I know, Agent Ludwig's screaming for me to get out of the pickup. And he had his barrel of his gun pointed right at Chase and I's head. I hate that he's had to go through this. My daughter, my wife. People haven't been too kind to them. And, man, I'm sorry. So you find your mom.
Jason Carter's defense attorneys joined the Law&Crime network today to discuss the acquittal and the civil trial which brought about the criminal charges. Here, they discussed their attempt to find out who Shirley Carter's real killer is.
Looking through the evidence together, we all have made guesses. There certainly is evidence pointing at a number of different people, but I don't think any of us ever got to the point where any of us was ready to say that we could really name one specific person. I think in the civil trial, if I remember correctly, and I should defer this to Allison, Jason said he hoped it wasn't his father, and I don't think he ever specifically stated that he believed his father was responsible.
It crossed his mind for sure that his dad could have been responsible for it, but he never actually accepted that emotionally, that his father could have done that. And I think as we got all this new evidence in after the civil trial that wasn't available to us in the civil trial, more questions arose about who could actually be responsible for this.
All right, very interesting story. Joining me tonight, attorney Katrina Kaufman and criminal defense attorney Mike Corbanics. Let's talk about the civil trial. So this guy is found not guilty in his criminal trial. However, he was found essentially guilty in the civil trial, and there was a $10 million verdict. Does he have any chance here, Mike, of possibly having an appeal based on this criminal finding?
I don't think he does, because civil and criminal are two different animals. One has a much lower standard of proof preponderance of the evidence for civil and beyond the reasonable doubt for criminal. Criminal is not guilty or innocent. It's guilty or not guilty. They might have just found that there was enough proof, but civilly, he could be liable.
And Katrina, you hear him talk about what kind of toll this took on his family, his children, and obviously, this is a case where if he truly is not guilty, then this is really an injustice.
It is, and I really feel for that family at this point. The father has been pitted against his own son. He won the civil case against him, and you just wonder how they're really going to repair, and they still currently have a killer at large.
Yeah, that's the main question here. If he didn't do it, who killed Shirley Carter. Who killed her? Because that's not really answered. Mike, I know you were there for watching some of the trial, but it's not really answered. If he's not guilty, who did it? Was it the father? Who was it?
Well, he's not guilty. It doesn't mean he didn't do it. This has a lot of repercussions of the OJ case. Not guilty criminally, held liable civilly. So, you know, I just sometimes think sometimes people should ride off into the sunset after they get their not guilty plea. I don't know if this is in his best interest to keep speaking out.
Well, listen, there are many odd things about what happened with this case. Some of his behavior following finding his mother dead on the floor there. As the prosecutors pointed out over and over again, it was not consistent with someone that didn't have anything to do. At least that's their theory with the crime. Okay, we're going to continue with day 5 of testimony in a Florida courtroom where a father's on trial for the death of his young daughter after he threw her off a bridge. Jonchuck is accused of murdering Phoebe Jonchuck by releasing her into Tampa Bay. The question is whether the defendant is legally insane or whether he can be held criminally responsible. Prosecutors are trying him on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and aggravated fleeing and eluding officers. Jonchuck's defense team says he committed murder, but that he was insane at the time. A psychiatrist who observed Jonchuck behind bars helps build their case. He describes what he calls Jonchuck's unusual religious references and a very odd admission.
Based on the, the first encounter, I mean, he came to introduce himself and says John the Baptist, that kind of statement like that. It came out of nowhere, because we were not talking about, like religion or nothing like that. So, and I did remember that if I asked if he knew why he was arrested, he said why. He told me why.
Did you find it unusual that how he answered that question?
I did. Most of the people, when they, by my experience, the patients that do that kind of crimes, they usually don't want to talk about it. They avoid the conversation. Or why did they say that they don't know why they got arrested? So I found it unusual that he kind of volunteered to tell me exactly what he did.
The defendant's priest said he thought that the defendant had mental health issues, but on cross-examination said he never perceived the defendant was a threat.
Never thought that for any moment during your conversation that he would be a danger to himself, right?
Correct.
You never thought that he posed any danger to Phoebe, right?
Correct.
Okay. Had you thought that, you would have handled things differently, right?
Correct.
And he made one comment about him being the Pope, right?
Correct.
What did he say?
I don't remember the context, but that he mentioned that he thought he was the Pope. I questioned him about it, said, "You don't really believe that, do you?" And he answered no.
Okay, so he withdrew that quickly, right? And you talked about the Bible.
Yes.
He didn't say anything to you about the Bible that was alarming, that you recall?
No, he was concerned about it. Wanted to know what it was. He didn't know what it was a Bible even.
Okay. And you told him that this was a special book, it's an antique, he should cherish it, right?
It seemed like a family heirloom.
You could tell there's something a little off with him, right? You've said that previously.
It was definitely off,
okay.
And his thoughts were rambling. So
right.
I had to sort of keep him focused.
Right, but he was able to have that conversation with you, correct?
He was able to have a conversation.
Okay. And at no point did he ever say that he was God?
No.
He never told you that you're God?
No.
He never said that he's Michael, the archangel?
No.
Never told you that you're Michael, the archangel?
No. To me, it seemed like he was in crisis, but that he was in contact with reality.
An officer who interrogated the defendant testified that he claimed he was God.
I introduced myself as Terry. I introduced myself as Sergeant Terry Hubble and asked him what his name was.
What did he say?
He proceeded to tell me that he was God and that I needed to address him as such and then he said my name. He's, Terry, you need to take me to the city of Babylon.
When you got in the car, he was agitated and yelling?
Yes.
Okay. When you introduced yourself, did he stop talking or did he keep on yelling?
He would, when I was talking and introducing myself and asking a question, he would listen, and then he would yell and answer back to me. He basically would tell me that he was God or the fallen angel of Michael, and he would say, Terry, you need to take me to the city of Babylon. He would not tell me who he threw over the bridge, and he would not give me his name.
Medical expert took this stand for the defense and summarized Jonchuck's years of mental health issues and explained Jonchuck's official diagnosis taken from notes made by a previous physician.
Eddie had a long history of mental health problems?
Yes.
What's the next thing you noticed that was important to you?
We jumped to age 21. He began seeing a psychiatrist. Dr. Arthur diagnosed him with, well, he noted some of the history. It appears he took some history from Mr. Jonchuck and noted that John was first diagnosed at USF, that he was diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder, and he was prescribed Ritalin, which is a common medication for ADHD and ADD. And he diagnosed John at age 21 with bipolar disorder, panic disorder, and ADHD. The next note that is highlighted is from December 2012 when he was 23 years old. Some of the symptoms that Dr. Arthur noted was that John was experiencing somatic hallucinations. So now he's experiencing hallucinations where he's feeling his skin bubbling, but there's no evidence that his skin is actually bubbling. He quoted John as saying, "I'm losing it."
All right, let's take you back to our great panel here, Katrina and Mike. So we're hearing really kind of some conflicting testimony here. You're having the priest, Mike, say he said he thought he was God, but then he withdrew that and he understood what reality was. And then you have, of course, the defense psychologist saying, you know, he was in a psychosis. What do you buy?
I don't even know why the priest is up for sale here, because I don't know why they've allowed him to testify in this matter, because I believe that there's a priest.
Well, how can he determine whether the guy is, well, there's that, but also how does a priest determine whether the guy understands what reality is or not? Is he trained on that, Katrina?
No, but I do think that when he was at the church, a police officer came and evaluated him with the Baker Act because they were considering doing involuntary confinement of him, and he did in fact pass that test. So both the priest thought he was in touch with reality, and so did the police at that time.
Yeah, I mean, you get conflicting reports on both sides. We talk about this afternoon. For a lot of the time that we were here, you heard testimony from that defense psychologist. And Mike, you mentioned earlier you had some issues with that.
I just didn't think he broke it down that it was understandable to a jury exactly what was his mental deficit that
at the time
that caused him not to appreciate to appreciate his actions. And he never really said that, and I don't think they're going to make the burden of showing that he didn't appreciate his actions at the time he committed that. And I'm still going with the police officer who testified about that he fled.
And because, again, all this insanity stuff comes down to whether or not at the moment he threw that precious girl off the bridge, whether he knew what he was doing was wrong. Okay. We will take you back inside the Jonchuck courtroom in a moment. But first, attorneys for the owner of the New England Patriots are trying to get a key piece of evidence thrown out. Find out how they are trying to clear Kraft's name. Also, the legal hurricane surrounding Jussie Smollett is now officially a Category 5 as the city of Chicago announcing they are seeking payback from the Empire actor. This after the break. Dr. Jussie Smollett's legal troubles continue as the city of Chicago demands payback, literally. City officials are now demanding Smollett pay $130,000 to cover the overtime required to investigate his claim that he was attacked in early January. Smollett's team has already rejected the request, according to TMZ. They say the only person who is owed anything is Jussie. They say he deserves an apology from the mayor and police superintendent. A grand jury indicted Smollett for lying to police when he claimed two men perpetrated a racist and homophobic attack against him. Defense attorneys for New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft are continuing their legal battle, and now they are fighting for a key piece of evidence to be thrown out. Police say surveillance shows Kraft receiving sex acts from massage therapists. Kraft's attorneys say the video was obtained illegally. They claim in a court filing that any surveillance video was obtained through an unlawful search warrant and that Jupiter, Florida detectives did not use proper investigation techniques. Kraft was busted in January as part of a wider law enforcement sting cracking down on sex trafficking. Kraft has pleaded not guilty to charges of soliciting prostitutes. Back to Jonchuck's case out of Florida. Today, his mother testified on behalf of the defense just 2 days after she testified for the state. During cross-examination, the state emphasized that Jonchuck's bizarre ramblings were only meant to intimidate, and that Jonchuck intended to ruin his mother's life by killing Phoebe because he didn't want anyone else to have her.
He would say these bizarre off-the-wall things to mess with people, right?
With me, yes.
And he'd been doing it since he was a teenager, right?
Yes.
Did it all the way up to the time of the murder?
Yes.
Okay. So saying off-the-wall bizarre things and mean things was not unusual for him?
No.
And when he thought he was going to up your life, you thought he was talking about Phoebe, right?
At that time, I wasn't sure if he was going to try to mess up my probation and put drugs in my coffee, or if he was talking about Phoebe at that time. Because I never really thought that he would ever do anything to hurt his daughter, because he loved his daughter.
But he didn't want Michelle to get her, did he?
No.
Didn't want Guy Kisser to get her, did he?
No.
And told you he was going to up your life, didn't he?
Yes.
And a few days later, he murders her, right?
Yes.
The defendant's own father testified previously about why the family dissolved and about the defendant's use of salt around the daughter's window.
When Michelle was pregnant with Johnny, was she using drugs?
Not to my knowledge, but then afterwards, I realized that it was possible.
Why did you and Michelle split up?
Because she spent all my money.
On what?
Drugs.
Did John pour salt around the house?
Yes.
Did he pour salt around the windows?
Yes.
Did he pour salt around the door to Phoebe's bedroom?
I don't know about that.
Did he tell you what the salt was for?
Objection, Judge.
Did he tell you why he put the salt there?
Apparently it's to keep out evil spirits.
Law attorney testified previously about calling 911 after becoming fearful during an office visit. Here's how it went down.
He said, you know, that's going to sound weird or strange. He said weird or strange. I'm not one of those words. He said, that sounds weird, but I really think that, I think you're saying Genevieve. And it caught me off guard, clearly. So I kind of said, I was like, no, you know, I'm definitely not. He's like, no, you're saying Genevieve. I know you are. You just came back from the city of Babylon, which was Montreal. To him was Babylon. So I said, I insisted that I wasn't. And then he said from there, well, then if you're not saying Genevieve, then you must be God. And he was serious. Like, he wasn't joking around at that point. Like, his tone changed. And then he was serious. He was like, you God, you're a creator. And I said, no, and I'm definitely not God. And I was starting to be a little, not at that point I knew something was not right. Then he insisted that I read the Bible to him. And I said, I can't. You said earlier that it was in Swedish. I don't speak Swedish. I can't read the Bible. I can't, I'm not going to, John. And then he said, you are the creator, you speak all languages. You know how to speak Swedish. And he wasn't joking. Like I was starting getting like very, very nervous. He kept insisting and insisting and insisting. And every time that I said no, I could tell that he was getting more agitated and more upset. When he got, tired of me saying that I was not going to read the Bible and I was not God, then he said, then I must be God.
Wow, that testimony is really unbelievable. Hearing what this man said in the moments, hours before he dropped his daughter off the bridge. One thing that we didn't get to that she did testify, Katrina, is the fact that he actually asked her to look after Phoebe.
Yeah, she did. He's asked if he could leave Phoebe there while he went to the church to go see a priest, and she told him to take Phoebe with him, and you just wonder how things really could have changed if she had kept the girl.
Yeah, you really wonder, but of course I'm sure that attorney there feels so much guilt over that, because if she had done it, there is a chance, Mike, that this young girl could still be alive.
Yeah, there is, but you wonder how it progresses, because you just wonder if it just wouldn't have been delayed to another day. I mean, this is such a story of
That's true.
things just failing, the system just failing this child. It's just sad.
Yeah, because you have, let's talk about all the different ways the system failed this child.
Well, there was constant in and out of family court, domestic violence, the child getting ping-ponged to various families. It's just a very upsetting story.
And the sad thing, Katrina, really quickly, is that there's so many cases where, unfortunately, we see the tragic results in this one, but there's so many cases of this kind of neglect and abuse going on across the country.
Yeah, and I think in Florida alone, there's been maybe about 500 cases like this, I believe we read. And it's just horrifying to see, and people really did try to step in along the way, and the system just seemed to fail this girl.
Well, thank you both for joining me this evening. Thanks so much for watching the Daily Debrief. Join us again Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Law&Crime Network. Stay with us.